Hi, my name is Brittany Hernandez, and I'll be taking a peek into neuromyths in education. The one neuromyth that I'll be taking a look into is if being a left-brained or right-brained person affects the way you learn. So if you're a left-brained person, you're going to be more verbal, logical, reasoning. If you're a right-brained, more poetic, creative, sporty, and a visual learner. So there was one study that was conducted by a few scientists, and basically what they did was they gathered a group of people and asked them how they preferred to learn, how they best learned and retained information. So they split the groups into two groups, left-brain people and right-brain people. And these people claimed that they were left and right-brained. So does this actually matter, being left or right-brained while learning? So that was the entire point of the science experiment. So left-brain people were presented with activities like lecture, and right-brain people were presented with an activity with visuals or pictures. So in the end, the experiment was concluded that it doesn't actually matter if you're a left or right-brain person while learning, because we kind of tend to mix in the two in order to understand the material. So another thing that was also said during this experiment was that instead of accommodating the task to us, we should do the exact opposite, which is accommodate to the task. So if I believe that I'm a visual learner, then if I'm in a math class, well, that's not going to help me as much as it would in an art class, right? Or in a world history class. So we kind of have to adjust and adapt to different areas in learning, and not depend on a particular way or a comfortable way of learning, because there's really no one right way to learn. And the second study that was conducted by Sandecker was actually kind of in response to the first experiment, which had concluded that being left or right brain doesn't actually matter. So this experiment, they did a very, very similar experiment, and in the end they concluded that it may matter if we believe that we're right or left brained. It could definitely affect the way that we learn, but there's not enough evidence to prove that being left or right brain matters in while learning. This is kind of more just like a bias going into learning or teaching a student, because that's one of the first questions that we ask ourselves is, how does this student learn, but with visuals or with the lecture? And we try to accommodate to a lot of these bias, right? We provide a PowerPoint also along with the lecture, videos, and with the second experiment, it was kind of left up in the air again. There's really no proof to tell us one thing is the correct way of learning, right, in the belief that we're right or left brained, because we don't actually know, like, if being right or left brain affects the way that we learn. If we were to follow the left brain, right brain theory, let's go with an example. If you were a baseball player and you were learning to bat, so we would assume that left brain people probably couldn't perform this task, at least not very well. Because it's not logical, it's not reasonable. It uses a different part of the brain, right, which is the right side. so we could assume that right brain people are going to be either do very well or can be very adaptable to a sport, right? Specifically baseball. So when we're up batting, we could assume that, well, if we're right-brained, we can tell where the pitch is going, right? And this example is actually used in a book called How We Learned by Benedict Carey, and he states that we can't even tell where the pitch is going, because it's just something that we kind of have to learn as we do it, as we practice, right? So it's like a continuous thing. But left brain people couldn't perform this task just because of the fact that their brain doesn't work that way. But as we all know, are probably... So do neuromyths actually harm the educational setting? And according to these two studies, and according to the example that I used from Benedict Carey's How We Learn, we actually don't know. We don't have enough information or enough evidence to prove that these neuromyths are actually hurting the educational setting. And we might be even misapplying these ideas in education. So we as teachers go in with a bias that that our learning is very dependent on are we left or right brained, and we teach these students over and over again, year after year, that it does, right? So you can't play sports if you're a left brain person, but that's actually not true. You could, right? Depending on motor skills and how long you've played, right? Like, it's just practice. Like, it's an ability that you possibly could learn. So thank you for watching, and I hope you liked the video, and we'll see you next time.